The Suzuki Z400 is a popular choice in the used market as a trail quad with a lot of sport quad characteristics. It offers a manual transmission with 5 speeds, piggyback shocks with a rear swing arm and chain drive, a high revving engine, reasonable ground clearance, and reverse. Even though the Z400 hasn't been made since 2014, there's still plenty of aftermarket support and a lot of used models available. The question is, should you buy a first-gen carbureted model or a second-gen model with electronic fuel injection? I've owned both, a 2009 first-gen and a 2014 second-gen. Both are very fun and capable quads with a lot of similarities and a few differences. The first gen was made from 2003 to 2009, although I've seen first and second gens listed as 09s. Came in yellow or white and is very capable in stock form. The motor is based on the DRZ400 motorcycle and has plenty of push and pull at 28 horsepower for a 373-pound quad. It has a great factory exhaust note with just a bit of snarl. It sounds even meaner with an aftermarket exhaust. And you have plenty of choices in the aftermarket. Using a full aftermarket exhaust, not just a slip-on, and an open top air filter will yield a few more horsepower. The second gen Z400 was made from 2009 through 14, also offered in yellow and white. The second gen incorporated more styling cues from the LTR450, so it has a more angular and aggressive appearance. The factory exhaust note is a bit quieter than the first gen, but wakes up nicely with an aftermarket pipe. Since it has fuel injection, it can be tweaked with an aftermarket full exhaust, intake, and fuel programmer. The seating position and overall ergonomics on both quads are similar and very comfortable. Even though they're not utility quads, they have a more upright seating position than, say, a 450 and provide much more leg room. This position is very comfortable for long rides, but also lends well to aggressive riding and standing. I preferred the second gen setup just a bit more as it feels slightly more balanced and centered, and you can have more control over the quad. The redesign certainly helped in that regard. Both quads handle well. The first gen feels slighter and more playful. You can easily wheelie and pop the front end up over small logs and rocks with a quick stab of the throttle. It's also happy to jump, but I found it to be so light in the front, it was also happy to get the front end too steep in bigger jumps. I also saw this happen a few times when I let other friends ride it. With practice you can figure it out, but it takes some work and is something to be aware of. The second gen feels a bit more planted and not quite as playful. It's still very easy to maneuver, but doesn't wheelie quite as easily. It feels very well proportioned and perfect for controlled power slides. It has a much more neutral feel when jumping and a better natural balance. Power-wise, the first gen feels just a little bit peppier and likes to rev a bit more. They both have the same rated 28 horsepower, but the second gen weighs in at 425 pounds compared to 373, which explains the lighter feel of the first generation and the feel of a little bit quicker acceleration. However, the second generation seems to also have a slightly lower first gear, and it handles lower speed situations much easier before bogging compared to the first gen, which is not really a fan of low speed situations at all. This makes the second gen easier to manage in more technical terrain and a bit more well-rounded. With a bit of clutch work, it's pretty impressive what obstacles you can ride over on a second gen. Also, the second gen is obviously much easier to start when cold. It's a bit of an unfair comparison with the fuel injection, as the first gen is not really temperamental, but you can't beat fuel injection for cold and hot starting. Both quads basically have the same brakes, same part numbers, and they work well. Similar headlight setups and storage capability, as in not much. And they both have the same swing arm adjustment setup, which you can strip out very easily, the one design flaw Suzuki did not bother to fix. I see more first gens for sale with a fairly broad price range. You can find clean stock versions post-COVID for around $2,500 give or take, and a lot of rough ones for less and more. The second gens are usually about $1,000 more expensive, but not always. If you pay attention, you can occasionally catch a clean one for under $3,000. Overall, I'd say the first gen is good if you're on a tighter budget or want something a little lighter that you may do some motocross riding with along with the trail. There are a lot of mods to make it faster and more MX oriented. The second gen is much more of an all-around quad that can manage technical as well as fast trail riding, has modern ergonomics, and offers fuel injection. But it's probably not quite as happy on the motocross track and doesn't seem to have as much aftermarket engine mod support, at least that I've seen. They also seem a bit harder to find and cost a little more. If I were in the market again for a Z400, I'd most likely go for a second gen, but I understand the first gen appeal. Either quad will be a blast to ride and fairly reliable, as long as you keep an eye on that swing arm chain adjustment. And always, buy the nicest quad you can afford, unless you just love wrenching. Then go for whatever your project goal is. For me, I enjoy riding much more than working on them, and also waiting 4 to 6 weeks for repairs, as your quad sits in the shop is no fun either. But that's just my opinion. Best of luck, and thanks for riding and watching.